Indiana 30. McCarthy in trouble. Rolls out. Delivers. Cornelius Johnson driving. Cornelius Johnson diving. Touchdown, Michigan.
Michigan beating Indiana 31-10. This was a game that was tied at halftime. Michigan goes on to score 21 unanswered in that second half. And as you can see there, they got the win. Welcome on in to Big Ten Live. Elise Menaker here taking you through all the action today. So we have all the on-field stuff from this past Saturday. And then, of course, we're going to preview everything coming up, hearing from 7 head coaches today. There's a lot to get to on the field, and we're certainly going to do that. There was also stuff happening off the field over the weekend. Want to get you updated on a lot of the news that broke. So let's start at Rutgers. Sean Gleason, he was fired. He was offensive coordinator. And Nunzio Campanelli, he's going to become the interim OC. Now, Nunzio Campanelli, that name probably sounds familiar, not just because he's been at Rutgers, but if you remember, he served as interim head coach back in 2019 after Chris Ash was fired. You can see there that under Gleason, the offense just not where it needed to be. 104th in scoring, 109th in total yards per game in FBS. This was a really hard decision for Greg Schiano, saying that. And there was also some news in that Michigan game. Now, Mike Hart, running backs coach, he collapsed on the sideline and he released this statement. I would like to thank everyone for their support, messages, and prayers. I am truly grateful for the trainers and paramedics, the doctors and nurses at IU Hospital, Michigan's team doctors, coaching staff, players, and Coach Harbaugh. I would also like to thank IU's football staff and team doctors. I will never forget everyone's kindness and generosity. My wife and I are thankful to be surrounded by such incredible people. Health-wise, I am back in Ann Arbor, and things are trending in a positive direction. I look forward to rejoining our team soon. So that is good news from Mike Hart. You like to hear that he is on the mend again after collapsing on the sideline. So this is who is speaking today. As I mentioned, 7 coaches on tap. We're going to start with Michigan, hearing from Jim Harbaugh and potentially getting an update more on Mike Hart, but certainly he'll be talking about this upcoming weekend as Michigan, they did fall in the standings just a bit, maybe because playing that close game there, but we will see what happens because they have a big game coming up at Penn State or against Penn State. And so that is on Fox on Saturday. Penn State, you can see their 10th in the rankings. Michigan just dropping a little bit to 5. Jim Harbaugh is at the podium talking about this game. So let's go to Ann Arbor now.
All right. So Mike, I think he issued a statement today, but he's back in Ann Arbor, feeling better. Hopes to rejoin the team soon. We'll make Fred Jackson. We've got a waiver to allow Fred Jackson to coach until Mike comes back.
Jim, do you expect Mike to coach Saturday, or is Saturday too soon?
I don't know. That'll be doctors will. Some they'll determine, Larry, as you would expect.
And there was some question about, on the broadcast they said it was a seizure. Are you able to say if it was or that or something else, or?
I don't have the wherewithal to comment on that.
Okay.
John? Coach, thoughts on Penn State and the challenge that they present?
It's just always good. They're just always prepared. They're always ready. They always win a lot of games. Always good on all sides of the ball. Always well coached. In great shape and tough, physical, sound football team and exceptional in many areas.
On the left, Isaiah.
Last week you spoke on the importance of starting fast, and outside of that first drive, it kind of went stagnant for a little while, but obviously things went really well in the second half. What did you learn about the team coming out of that game and its ability to do what it needed to do in the second half?
Yeah, if you are going to reach the promised land, you need games where the team has showed what it's capable of doing, defining moments in a second half of a ball game, and there's a lot to keep us humble and things that we have to improve on, but it did also give us a glimpse of what we can be.
Aaron?
Jim, I don't expect you to make excuses for your team, but how much do you think those first half struggles were chalked up to maybe lack of focus because of what happened with Mike?
That's unknowable. I think one thing football does teach you to do, is to concentrate on things you can control. And I think that was, it was a learning moment for that. But we were all, myself included, the most important thing at the time was Mike's health.
Right here, Tony.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned how Penn State does a lot of things well. Perhaps what they might do best is run defense. I just want to see what you've seen from them in that regard. Might be the toughest test you guys have faced there, and what would you need to do to be successful?
We're going to play really good. And not just run defense. Pass defense is really good. They're really good at both. So, biggest challenge of the year so far, in our opinion.
Larry?
Mike Morris can comment on his play recently and how he's emerged in the role he has.
Yeah, it's been really good. Just doing anything that helps the team, anything that's asked, including blocking a field goal in the game. That was also huge. That's in a lot of ways there were some coming out parties. Luke Schoonmaker, the pass rush, and some others. So that was as good a pass rush as you could hope for, and Mike's a big part of that.
Austin?
Jim, with the tunnel being named for Coach Carr this weekend, can you describe what it's like just to stand in that tunnel as a coach and a player? What kinds of things go through your mind when you're in that tunnel before a game?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of things that have changed around Ann Arbor, Michigan football, the campus, over decades. But to me, one thing that hasn't is that tunnel, and that is it's one thing that hasn't really changed. It's gritty, it's awesome, and just like the coach Lloyd Carr that it's going to be named for, just great, gritty. We love it. We're really proud of our tunnel, and couldn't be happier that it's now going to have Coach Carr's name on it.
Nick?
You mentioned Schoonmaker and coming out party. With Eric on the sideline, how have you seen him step up, both as a player on the field, but also as a leader in that tight end room?
Oh, he's always been that. The catches, the targets, the blocking. It's all. I think everybody's just seeing, what we've always seen and thought of Luke. Just has elevated his game to a really high level, and it's great to see.
Reiner?
As a new president takes effect, I guess, this week. How would you describe your relationship with him, and what's been the outreach between both of you?
So haven't met yet in person. We have texted back and forth. Just everything you hear from everybody is what a great guy he is. How enthusiastic he is, how engaged he is with really everybody, including the students. Just the enjoyment he has of being on a college campus, and has tremendous leadership skills. And that's from everybody that I've talked to here, and also Rick Minter, who was a head coach at Cincinnati when Santa was there. Same thing. Everybody just had amazing things to say about him and his tenure at Cincinnati. So super excited. I think everybody here. I know coaches, professors, students are anticipating his arrival and are excited about it. You have people that are here that know him and know what he's done, and they're excited for his arrival. People who've been where he's been, people have nothing but fantastic things to say. So yeah, really looking forward to it, and we're going to have him be our honorary captain for the Michigan State game. That'd be exciting. Michael Phelps will be the honorary captain for the Penn State game. So that's adds to the excitement as well.
With NIL and everything else, and the way college sports is changing, how important is it to have a strong relationship with, the administration, and from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's important.
On the left, Aaron.
Jim, your team's ranked in the top 10. Penn State's ranked in the top 10. You're both the top of standings. Does Saturday have a big game feel to you?
I think it's important. Things are progressing. To be progressive. I think that's important.
Does Saturday have a big game feel to you?
Oh yeah. Big game. And if anybody was watching football yesterday on television, the pro games, it seems like every commercial break there was a advertisement for the Michigan Penn State game. So if anybody wasn't realizing that this was a big game, there were constant reminders yesterday.
Right here, Tony.
Yeah, last year Penn State wasn't as good running the ball as it typically is. They seem to have sort of found that form again. What do you think is the difference, or what have you seen, and what sort of challenges do they present when they're running the ball?
Well, they're good all the time, as I said. I've always thought, and they always have. It's just facts. They're always good. They always win a lot of games. Running the ball, throwing the ball, defending the run, defending the pass. Really good on special teams. They have good specialists. A lot of talented players, well coached. The quarterback is really good. We've gone against him for a lot of games, and a ton of respect for what he can do. They're always throwing great backs at you, and tight ends and offensive linemen, and just always good football. Always you can always expect a real big game when you're playing Penn State.
On the left, Brandon.
They say players play the game, and that's what it comes down to. But in a game like this, where both sides are far more evenly talented, how much pressure as a coaching staff do you guys take on to draw up a scheme that's going to work for your players and put them in a position to succeed?
Well, that's something we do every week. It's just always you get into this battle rhythm of the season. It's just always demanding, punishing, challenging yourself to put the players in the best position possible every single week. And you get used to it, and you look forward to it, and that's what drives you.
Got time for a few more. We got David.
Coach, you mentioned having Fred Jackson get a waiver to be on the sidelines this game. Obviously, he's been with the program since, I believe, July, but how important has he been over the season, not just in this situation, but as an analyst reporter?
Yeah, he's super cool. I've known Fred Jackson. I think my first start ever as a high school varsity player was against Pioneer versus Flint Southwestern. So go way back with Fred Jackson. He's great. Always has great insights and knows the whole game too. He knows all facets of the game, but especially quarterback play and offensive football, offensive coordinator type of mind. So it's been great.
In the back left, Angelique.
Jim, Jim, I was wondering what you think of the turnover buffs, and do you encourage things like that your players to enjoy on the sideline? The buffs, the glasses.
I don't know what you're talking about. Buffs?
The turnover picks that they do after turnovers, and then they put on
Pictures?
glasses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love them. I mean, it's, it's very much ruled that you really can't do anything in terms of having fun or celebrating on the field, especially on defense. It seems it's even more so that way. I mean, so, but on the sideline, you do whatever you want. So that's, let the guys have fun and celebrate that, to come over to the sideline and have a picture and put on sunglasses. I never heard buffs. I mean, you're really with it, Angelique, because you could not be accused of not being with the times in the lingo.
Got time for probably one more. Aaron?
Jim, do you expect them rolling back this week?
Never like to comment on whether I expect that or not. We'll see.
That was Jim Harbaugh, and he gave us an update on Mike Hart. Now, we heard from Mike Hart in a statement saying that he is trending in a positive direction, so you like to hear that he is doing well. And then Harbaugh giving the update, though, not sure when he'll be back on the sideline. So this is the update that Harbaugh gave us. Long-term assistant coach Fred Jackson, he will be filling in as the running backs coach until it is clear when Hart is healthy enough to come back to the sideline. So
Hart's throwing. DK catching, sprinting through space on the sideline and up the sideline and in for a touchdown. Chinray DK. And it is a full hand of touchdown passes today. That's 5 now for Mertz.
Yeah, that's right. Graham Mertz had 5 touchdowns in Saturday's win against Northwestern. Wisconsin beat Northwestern 42-7. With those 5 touchdowns, Mertz matched a career high and school record. So you can see he's got, 5. There's a few guys on this board, but Mertz in those top 2 spots, having done it now a couple of times with those 5 passing touchdowns. And with that means acting head coach Jim Leonhard got his first win. And he was talking to our Dave Revson on Big Ten Today, saying that, yeah, being in that head coach spot now with that pregame routine, it can be a little bit different. But of course, Jim Leonhard, high praise ever since he has been coaching at Wisconsin. So he is now taking over that role as acting head coach. Coming up, his next game will be against Michigan State. Michigan State, they're going to come off a tough loss against Ohio State, losing 49-20. But Wisconsin, really, if they can pick up where they left off against Northwestern, well, it was, all Graham Mertz, all offense for Wisconsin in that 42-7 win. So you also had Braylon Allen, 23 rushes for 135 yards. He had a 23-yard touchdown pass from Mertz, so that was one of those 5, and it was the largest win at Northwestern since 1983. So again, after his first win as acting head coach, let's take you out to Jim Leonhard.
As I mentioned after the game, was extremely proud of the way the guys responded, and to go get a victory like that was a lot of fun. We knew there's big challenges ahead, and we need to turn the page fast, but was very happy after watching the tape, just seeing how many guys really played their best football of the season. Hopefully we can build off that and gain a lot of confidence of what happened in Evanston, and just happy of the group and the coaches, the plan we were able to give them, and kind of the confidence that showed on the field.
Jim, one of the guys who obviously had an impact was Kamoy. And I remember when he first came here and we talked to him, he talked about being physical, supporting the run, things like that. He didn't talk too much about his ability to cover or help out. Has he given you more in that area than you thought, or is that something you guys see in practice when we're not around?
I think you guys must not have watched his tape. But yeah, he's a fluid mover. I mean, he's very explosive and can run. So we thought, he was going to be able to do some very good things in coverage on top of the physicality that he loves to play with. He's getting more and more comfortable within this defense every week, and he's coming off his best games back to back. So excited about where he's at. You know, he still has to continue to grow and learn to communicate certain things within this defense, but he's gaining more confidence every week. And you're starting to see that play speed come out in the run and the pass game.
Jim, you mentioned last week needing to play good football and clean football. Was there anything that you were able to do practice-wise, or maybe tweaking some different things there in the week to help them do that? Because no turnovers, less penalties last week.
We shortened some things up. I think it's that time of the year a little bit where the physicality needs to scale back to some degree. You still have to remain that football team, but I think the number one goal at this point is to be fresh on game day. So we're going to continue to tweak things. Not saying we were doing it wrong, but I felt like it was the right time. And this is kind of that midpoint of the season kind of stretch, and we're light numbers at certain positions. So it's constantly going to be in flux a little bit about what the correct physicality and length of practice is going to be going forward. I think that was a big emphasis. And then just getting guys to understand you have to execute. And I think we had guys trying to do a little bit too much early. They're trying to rely on outworking somebody too early in the down. You have to be technically sound. You have to be on your landmarks, offense, defensive line, before that second piece kicks in to just outwork people. And then obviously on the edges, you got to create separation as receivers, right? And a lot of that happens early in the down, right? As a DB, you have to take great angles and use your hands early in the down. We weren't doing a great job of any of those things, the previous couple weeks. So it's kind of more than anything getting back to the basics. And the challenge was how efficient can you be, right? How well can you execute for 60 minutes? And they rose up to the occasion, and I think that helped clean up a lot of things.
Jim, going back to the secondary, Ricardo Hallman's been a guy, he started every game, been, seemingly pretty solid as a freshman. I guess I just want to ask you, what stands out to you about him? Why do you think he's maybe been able to come in as a redshirt freshman and really be one of your consistent guys, in the secondary?
Two things stick out to me with Rico. One, confidence, which you need at that position, and two is maturity. He knows who he is, right? He understands his skill set, what he's really good at, what he needs to continue to work on, right? What are his strengths, and how can he adjust those things week to week to win matchups? I think those are the two things that stand out to me with Rico, and he's been very consistent for us, continues to grow with every game, just the experience he's learning. He is a young guy, but he hasn't made too many moments too big. And that's exciting to watch. I think he'll continue to grow this year.
Jim, how do you balance trying to prepare this team every week for a game while also knowing that if you do a good enough job in 6 or so weeks, you might have an opportunity to earn the role full time? And as a follow-up to that, do you have a clear understanding of what the criteria are on which you're being kind of judged? Is it strictly wins and losses?
I think, number one, it's still early enough in my head that it's still kind of the day-to-day, right? There's enough things that I am learning. What am I responsible for? Who do I need to communicate? What's happening when? That I can still kind of focus on the day-to-day, and eventually the big picture will get there. Obviously, having gone through one week now, able to have different conversations that I didn't feel necessary last week, and will continue to grow within what's being asked really over the next 6 weeks, right? And, not really concerned with the big picture. Obviously, if we play good football and we win games, I'll have a bigger opportunity to be in this role moving forward. So that's my focus right now. It's still very much the day-to-day and week-to-week. The big picture will come. And I mentioned last week that I had a lot of ideas on things we could do maybe differently or input on. Just going to continue to have those conversations with the people that I think need to hear them, and we can make those decisions as things move forward.
Just checking with Ches Malusi. I guess he's declared out for this weekend. Any indication on how much time he might miss?
Ches injured his wrist in the game. Will definitely be out this week. Probably more bi-week evaluation of seeing how long-term the injury is going to be, but he's definitely going to be out this week.
Jim, you talked about changes, making changes. Obviously, you can't just make household changes in a day, right? But like something like this, you're talking an hour earlier than Paul would have. And are there other little things that you've done just to kind of tweak because you may like it a different way than someone else did?
Yeah, to me, the number one, schedule, right? Making sure practice is as clean and as efficient as we need it to be, and the guys are getting what they need at this point to give us the best chance to win on Saturday, right? So little day-to-day things that way. We changed our Monday schedule to afternoon walkthrough rather than morning, which I think is huge for coaches, really having an extra 10, 12 hours to detail this thing up. I know our players felt a huge difference, I think, with our confidence, right, in how we presented the plan. Felt like we wasted less reps on a Monday as you were close to having the answers, but maybe not all the way there. So just some little things scheduling-wise right now, and practice, I think they felt a difference, and hopefully they see that we have confidence in it. So I think our players are very adaptable, right? They're going to feel that. Last week the emotions were high. We needed to do everything we could to kind of get in front of the players, right? Try to clear out the emotions to be able to focus, and that it's still fresh, it's still new. It's only a couple more days out, so I'm not going to act like that has disappeared. Obviously, a win helps, but going to let guys process that as well, and we did a good job separating that when we needed to and focusing, and that will continue to be the message to our guys.
Jim, you mentioned being thin at certain spots. Safety, you took a couple hits this year. I'm just curious. I know guessing about injuries is difficult, but Hunter Wohler, I know he's no crutches, no boot anymore. Has he done any work in practice? Do you have any rough idea on when he may be able to return and give you something this year?
Yeah, he has not been able to practice yet to this point. Getting closer, doing significantly more in his rehab. It's probably a situation where it's going to be close to the bye week, whether it's before or after. Want to do right by him. When he's available, obviously he'll be a contributor for us. He was having a great season before the injuries, so we're excited to get him back. It's just not quite that time yet.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you have to work something like that back in gradually? You can't just throw him in, or how do you handle that?
I mean, I would not be concerned mentally where he's at. Very focused, still doing everything as if he's playing the game. It's more, you'd work him back gradually based off of conditioning, right? Where he's able to be at, how many plays, how many reps within a game do you actually feel like he can execute at a high level? That'd be my only concern, not the mental side of it.
Jim, on top of a coaching change and being a student athlete,
Is that your kids? What's going on?
Sorry, guys.
With just being a student athlete, and then of course the coaching change. Someone like Jake Chaney, his hometown, Cape Coral, hit pretty hard. Hit hard by Hurricane Ian. Just how do you, as a coaching staff and just the support staff, all work with him, or even someone like Ches, who's from Naples, to check in on how they're doing and try to support them during this time as well?
Yeah, I think number one is just reaching out to the kids. Is your family okay? Reaching out to the parents. Are you safe? Are you okay? Do you need any resources? Can we help? Right? What can we do, first of all, as a university to support, and what do you need, right? And those guys, it was awesome to hear. The families were safe. They were in good positions, so puts them at ease, right? But that's real. That's scary stuff, and they handled it well, and I thought we did a good job of communicating with them just to make sure their families were in good position and not in harm's way.
Jim, this is kind of like a two-part recruiting question, but as the numbers in the transfer portal continue to grow, you mentioned in the spring you want this program to be, recruit and develop, but does it change their approach at all when you just see more and more talent out there? And then second part of that, when you do get transfers in, is the challenge any different getting those guys to buy into culture and other parts of the team than it is maybe with a high school recruit?
Well, I would say the first part of that question is the transfer portal is only growing, right? It is going to continue to be a part of the recruiting process and roster building in college football. You need talent, you need experience, but you need to find that balance of how are you going to recruit your players and develop them and give them time, right, and not constantly try to jump over younger players in that process. So a lot of conversations on what's the right thing to do, right? We have to trust our ability to develop our players, and that if you get the right ones in there, they're going to put in the work and grow. You look at it like a Ricardo Hallman, right? He could have taken that situation a number of different ways, and how he responded because of who he is and the trust he has in us as coaches comes out and starts every game so far this year, even with bringing in a lot of veterans at the position. So I think there'll be examples where it works very well, and there's going to be examples that maybe you go back and think that maybe you needed to handle it a different way. So just like recruiting out of high school, it's not going to be perfect, right? There's going to be misses. It's our job as coaches to really to do the research and find out who the kids are, right? What's their commitment level, right? Do they see this as just a step before they get another opportunity, or is it truly, they want to buy into the team, buy into the culture, the leadership that you're going to ask? Because experience is great if it's passed on, right? But if they're going to come in here and just, I'm going to put my time in order to give myself one more chance at an opportunity or 2 more years to move on to the next thing, that's not going to be great culture, and has the ability to separate a locker room. So I think it puts more on the coaches to identify, just like out of high school, the kids that truly are about everything your culture fits. And obviously there is a talent component, and you need to create depth at positions where you need it, which unfortunately is every single one right now.
I'm sure the circumstances weren't maybe what you would have wanted to get to this position, but just curious if you've ever had a moment to kind of take it in and take in the position you're in right now, leading the program.
Yeah, there's been moments. Mentioned after the game, I have a lot of confidence because of who I'm around, right? Whether that's my support system of my family, the players, the coaches, the faculty here, the strength and conditioning, training room, like you name it. Like I gain a lot of confidence just when I look around. I think I have a group behind me that is willing to kind of follow through with what changes happen, right? That gets me excited. And had enough time after the game to take it in. Had so many people reach out. I apologize if I haven't reached back. So many people have reached out to me in the last 48 hours. It's kind of been humbling that way, but at the same time, you're in the middle of the season, and you have to move on quickly. So the excitement is still there. I'm glad we got off on the right foot, but we got to do it again.
Jim, having gone through this for the last week or so, is there anything that surprised you, whether it's media requests or requests from Brian, or requests from Chris, or talking to alumni? And the second part of the question is, how much different is your day-to-day today as it was a couple of weeks ago?
Not necessarily surprised. I guess fortunate to have plenty of experience in some big media markets, right, to where usually you get a lot of requests when things are really good or really bad. When things are status quo, it's pretty comfortable. So but fortunate to have been through some unique situations from a media standpoint. The day-to-day to me is just less downtime, right? I have to communicate more with Coach Ingram in the offensive side of the ball, special teams, operations, right, with scheduling, just a lot more check-ins, more so than meetings at this point, but a lot more decisions that have to be made, mostly minor, right, mostly just signing off. The machine of college football in a program, once the wheels get set in motion, a lot of it is just making sure, are you okay with this, or does it need to change? Things have been mapped out for the season, right? Do we need to make certain adjustments, or are we comfortable with the decisions that have been made? So in a way, a lot of the decision making is kind of underway, and I just have to sign off on it, which make things a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, I think there's just less downtime, right? I'm always having to run to something, talk to somebody, catch up on a meeting, right? Get ahead of a meeting, stuff like that. And that's kind of what game day felt like to me too, right? There's just less time to watch. There's less time to critique the other side of the ball, maybe on the headset, rather than communicating and just being focused on the team, which is fun, right? I mean, that's an exciting part of it, just to feel like you have to be engaged for a long period of time. That's a pretty good challenge to take that 4-hour stretch or whatever it ends up being and try to just be as engaged as possible. It's what we ask our kids to do. And as a coach, sometimes you know how to turn it on, turn it off based off of what you have to do, and just felt like I had to be a little bit more engaged and available and willing to communicate throughout the day.
Jim, with the news of Deacon last night, in terms of the quarterback room, I guess maybe an injury update too, as a request. How is Chase Wolf progressing through his injury? But also, does the program feel about Miles Burkett now and the rest of that quarterback room behind Graham?
First off, starting with Chase, injury is progressing, right? His rehab is progressing. He's not back to where he's ready to be on the field yet, but he's moving in the right direction there. Miles, next. Impressed with his maturity. He's a young kid, obviously, but handles his business every day, continues to get better, continues to put in the work. So pleased with how he's progressing very early on in his career and excited for what the future may hold for him. As far as Deacon, I have a ton of respect for Deacon, and this is the little bit the new normal, right? Kids have to weigh what they think their future is, where they stand. What has the communication been with the staff, right? I mean, you get one opportunity to play college football, and you like guys to continue to push and trust the process and trust the decision they made to come here, but sometimes it gets to a point where they feel like they have to move on. So we'll do everything we can to support Deacon. I think he's got a ton of talent. I think he's going to be a great quarterback at this level. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen here.
Jim, what have you seen from Michigan State's running game, specifically Jalen Berger? Felt like they got off to a pretty good start, but it's been tough sledding of late.
Yeah, I think early you saw the O-line kind of cohesion with that group, how they were playing, and the backs, really being aggressive. They've struggled recently up front. I think had some different combinations as far as the groups goes, and just hasn't been as clean as early in the season. And I think the running backs have dropped off as far as the production more because of that. Physical, right? They're no nonsense guys. They stretch and they cut, they get vertical, and they put pressure on the defense. So we have to be clean. It's a good test for our defense up front, and one I'm excited. We played well in the run game last week. Not a huge challenge, obviously, when you jump up. Northwestern kind of had to get out of their structure a little bit earlier than they would have liked. But I think it's a great test for this defense because the backs are talented. They're consistent in how they run the football and kind of home run ability with that whole group.
All right, so Jim, Leonhard there announcing that running back Chez Mellusi, he injured his right wrist Saturday against Northwestern. Well, he had surgery yesterday, so he is out indefinitely. He is Wisconsin's second leading rusher. He has 223 yards on the season with a touchdown. So now really you look at Braylon Allen and him carrying a bulk of the rush offense for Wisconsin. Now they're taking on Michigan State Saturday. Michigan State, when it comes to rushing for them, they had only 7 rushing yards against Ohio State, so they're certainly looking for help in their run game. You can see they have now 4 straight losses, all by double digits, so they're looking for a big bounce back against Wisconsin. That game Saturday on Fox. To round out this matchup, let's hear from Mel Tucker at Michigan State.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here today. I really appreciate it. I did have a chance to watch the film, had a chance to do that. That night, some of the big picture, observations. It was I had one person say to me after the game, someone who was observing the game said it looked like JV versus varsity out there, and so what we did is we showed our players. When it didn't look like JV versus varsity in the game. And there was plays in the game, offense, defense, and special teams, where it did not look that way. And you have to show them why. Okay, why were we able to win this down? Why were you able to make this play? Why were you able to win this one-on-one? Why were we able to get yardage on this run? Things like that. Why were we able to get pressure on the quarterback? Okay, those things. So show them why. And then we need consistency in performance. And then when we didn't win, the one-on-ones, when we didn't execute, you have to also show why. And that's and then so how do you fix it? Well, then that's what we're doing right now. And there's we could talk all day about how you fix it, but that's what we're doing behind the scenes right now. So we did do some good things in the game, but not enough. We have to be able to, offense, defense, and special teams, we need to be able to string several good plays together, several positive plays together in a row to be able to be successful. And that's what we haven't been able to do on a consistent basis. Obviously, Ohio State's got a really good team. They're very well coached. They have some good players. And if you don't play well, you're not going to get the result that you need. Jaden Mangum, he was back on the sideline during the game. He was in the locker room after the game. And then he's back with us, and he's progressing nicely. So that was good news. I'm looking forward to the game this week. Our preparation was good this morning, and I expect it to be the same way for the rest of the week. But we are looking to fix some of the problems all of the problems that we have. And so, that's our job. I told the players before, and I told them again this morning, I will never throw you, okay, or a coach or any staff member under the bus publicly. I'll never do that, okay? And however, behind closed doors in our space, we have to make sure we hold each other accountable, and we're doing that. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
It looked like Xavier, Henderson, and Slade were out on the field before the game in uniform warming up. I was wondering, what does that mean to have them back around the team on the field, and what does that mean for their recovery going forward?
You said Xavier and who else?
Jacob Slade.
Yep, they warmed up with us, and they're getting closer to getting back, and so we'll continue to monitor their progress. They're doing everything they can to get back, and they'll be ready when they're ready.
I'm wondering, coming out of a game like that against a team that has such depth and depth of talent, what are the positives that can go forward in terms of knowing how to play with toughness and physicality at that level?
Well, like I just pointed out, we show the players the plays where we were able to win our one-on-ones, where we were able to be successful and efficient, defensively, offensively, on special teams, like where we were able to make plays, and you show them that. And like I told them this morning, that's the team that we believe in. That's the team that we know that we can be. Like I said at the beginning of the season, before the season started, someone said, "Well, what are your goals for the team?" I said, after we stayed, the stated goals of, our goal is to win every game on the schedule. Beyond that, the goal is for us to reach our full potential as a football team. That's always the goal every year. And so, you see that, hey, here's good players. We're playing against good players. We have good players. We're winning here. Okay, so that's what we're capable of doing, but we're inconsistent, and so that should be encouraging when someone sees that. And so we're pointing out those things, and it's not just enough to see that it's being done properly, but understand why, and so that's what we're doing.
As a follow to that, the physical component, the physicality that needs to go at that level when you play elite teams, is there muscle memory that comes farther down the line that says, okay, team X hit us this hard, we got to hit team Y this hard to be competitive?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I exactly know what you're asking, but You know, anytime you play a good team, it's going to be extremely physical. Okay, and in order for you to be able to win the one-on-ones, you have to be more physical. And so, that's what it is.
Mel in the front here. I was wondering, 6 games in the season, you're at the midway point. Where do you see your team at now compared to where you thought you would be coming into the year?
Yeah, I see our team preparing for the next game because that's the only thing that matters right now for us. That's it. This next game, Wisconsin, home game, Woodshed, homecoming, national TV, that's the only thing that matters. That's what I see it. That's a narrow focus for myself. That's a narrow focus for our team.
Mel, I know you had a lot of other things to look at Saturday afternoon, but when you're standing on the sideline and you gaze across to the east and all you see is scarlet in the second half and you hear the OHIO, what's going through your mind and what do you say to the fans that left? I really actually don't notice that because I'm dialed into the game. It may be like it's being brought to my attention now, maybe after the game. So you want to know how I feel about it, like personally, like when you're telling me about this and you're bringing it up, because I'm not really paying attention to that during the game. So, like quite frankly, I don't have an expectation of unconditional support from anyone in my life, period. Maybe a handful of people. Like from human beings, I don't expect unconditional support from anyone. I might be able to count on one hand how many people that I may expect that from, and that's it. So that's not an expectation that I have, unconditional support, like from anyone, ever. So, like, including like my dogs, like PJ and KJ. I mean, like, dog is man's best friend, right? Like, win or tie. That's when dog is your best friend, win or tie. I come home, and we don't play well. I mean, like, KJ and PJ, they're looking at me like, really? Is that it? I don't get mad at them, and I'm still gonna feed them. I mean, it's like, what do you expect? So, that's how I feel about it. It's not, how else am I supposed to feel about it? I mean, like, what do I say to the fans? I mean, we need to play better football so you can be proud, and so that it's the brand of football out there that you expect, and then we'll get more of what we want from our fans. Is that what you mean when you've said it's performance-based business and kind of you get what you deserve with that?
Well, it is a performance-based business. It's a production business, and it is a business. And so, but again, I don't expect unconditional support from anyone, ever. That's not an expectation that I do have. There's no reason to think like that. In my mind, it may be different for others. And I haven't coached anywhere, college or pro, where there's been unconditional support. I have not coached anywhere, whether it's here in 97, 98, or Mineville, Ohio, or LSU, or Ohio State, or Cleveland Browns, Jacksonville, Chicago, Alabama, Georgia, Colorado, here. I've never coached anywhere where there's been unconditional support. So why would I expect that?
Mel, we talked about Paul Chryst' situation a week or so ago, or whatever, with them having an interim coach. We've seen before, that can sort of give a team a bump, a spark a little bit, for maybe it's temporary. It seems like maybe they have that going. Wisconsin has that going with how they played last week. Is that just something? Is there any way to guard against that? Is that something that you sort of mentioned to the players, like this is a team that is really motivated right now to try to do some things? I don't know if there's any way to guard against that at all, but is that something that you're thinking about this week?
Well, I mentioned it to them this morning because we always show them the team's record, and we show them some stats for the last few games. And I said, hey, after this game, the coach was let go, and these were the results for the following game. So it's not going to get any easier the easy bus is not coming.
Mel, there were over here. Obviously, the offensive line had some trouble on Saturday. And I'm wondering how. I've just never seen a successful offense when you're not winning up front, and I'm just wondering how you get around that and when that's sometimes going to be your reality.
Yeah, well, it's we do have to win up front, and when you look at the coach's copy and you know what players are called, you know, sometimes it looks like it's the front, and it is, and sometimes it looks like the front and it's not. You know, so you know it's a collective effort to be efficient on those plays. You know, but obviously, yeah, we have to execute better to get what we want. You know, and someone asked me about the run game, so like the vast majority of the runs that we call and run are efficient this season. The vast majority. You know, we do have players that everyone does in college football now that it's a run pass option, and it's based upon what you see. If you actually hand the ball off, or do you throw the pass option? And so you know, maybe we may need to call more. We may call more runs that are just call it and run it. But you know, when you talk about complementary football, when you're down a significant amount of points in the second half, you know, calling it and running it is not much of an option. You know, and that's been our case. But when you look at when we actually do hand the ball off, you know, when we look at our self-scout, the vast majority of our runs are efficient. You can actually see that in this past game. When we did hand the ball off, how many yards were we able to get? And every run's not efficient, obviously, just like we had several tackles for loss against Ohio State. Every run's not efficient. But you know, that's what the self-scout says. You know, so complementary football has something to do with that as well. You know, team game.
Getting back to the Wisconsin situation, that's obviously one you were in yourself in Jacksonville, being an interim head coach. I was wondering what kind of dynamic that has in season when you have a new lead voice in the room, and kind of the effect that can have on a team.
Yeah, every situation is different. You know, so I don't know their situation, so I can't really speak to it.
You're going to be going up against another pretty good quarterback in Graham Mertz. So what have you noticed about him on film that maybe could give your defense some problems?
Yeah, well, the thing I noticed about him is, so he has experience, and he has really good command of the offense, and the type of offense they run is a lot of it's predicated, like the passing game is predicated on play action. He does a really nice job of ball handling, and they do a good job matching up the runs with the play action passes. And when the ball comes out of his hand, it comes out very easily with a lot of velocity and accuracy. You know, so he's got really good arm talent, and he's accurate, and he's got really good poise. He's a very good quarterback, very good. And we've seen a lot of good quarterbacks this season, and he's one of those guys.
Well, you knew that last year can't happen every year. So I know you're looking forward, but between the 4 straight losses and the injuries, which you can't control, where's your frustration level right now?
Like at this point right now, my frustration level is not there because I'm focused on this game and this practice. Frustration gets you nowhere. It's all about, you know, action steps. You have to train. I train myself, and we have to train ourselves to focus on what's next, because anger, frustration, all that stuff, how far can that actually take you when, you know, it's time to prepare for the next opponent? So going into a meeting room, going onto the field with anger and frustration, okay, without action steps and solutions and plans and things like that, is basically just, you know, unprofessional. You know.
I was wondering what you see from their running back. I think he's like 11th in the nation in rushing. I think Braylon Allen, just like the challenge he presents for you guys to go with Mertz.
big, fast, runs hard. He's got really good vision. He's looking for contact, but he can also make you miss, and they have a huge offensive line. Massive human beings, you know. But he's a really good back. We're not going to play anyone in this conference that doesn't have good running backs, and he's one of those guys. He's a good back, good player, physical. He's a load.
Justin White and Kendall Brooks, I mean, would you have ever thought that two former Division II guys would be your starting safeties? And the production that they had on Saturday, with I think 21 tackles between them, what has allowed them to make that jump and be effective?
Yeah, I have thought that they would be on the field. We talked about it in training camp. We have to prepare every guy. We're coaching every single player, including walk-ons, to be ready to go in the game. I've said that several times over and over and over again. And we preach that to our players. You're only one play away. You know, you could be, you know, you're one play away, and next thing you know, you're a 2. And then next thing you know, you're another play away, and next thing you know, you're starting. You know, and that's because football is a game of, you know, injuries are part of the game. In football, it's a game of attrition. In some years, you can go through and not have very many injuries, and sometimes you can go through the season and have a lot, and no one cares. It's about, you know, bottom line production. It's like in the spring, you know, we talked about spring ball where we had, you know, 5 offensive linemen, and we took 2 walk-on defensive linemen and moved them over to offensive line so we could practice in the spring. We had to modify our practices. That's, you know, that's what it takes. Is no one cares. You know, you have to prepare guys and get guys ready. So, you know, it's next man up. And so, you know, prepare guys, develop guys. Some of it is on the job training. Okay, well, that's what it is, you know, and then we work to get better, you know, each and every day, you know, whether it's on the defensive line, injuries, or at linebacker or in the secondary, it doesn't matter, you know, but we've worked really hard to coach every guy, you know, in spring ball, in the summer, in camp, to be prepared to step on the field and play winning football for us, you know. And it does matter who's out there. Okay, so the guys that are out there, we have to get them ready to produce, and because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters.
As a follow to that, how do guys fall through the cracks with the way that scouting has gone, where a guy from Division II can come in and elevate, and what have those two individually done to kind of put their footprint on their roles?
How do guys fall through the cracks? Yeah, you know, that's tough to say. That might be a discussion for a later time. You know, but the bottom line is that they're here, and you know, everyone on our team gets coached. You know, and so those guys, those players in particular, have been getting reps, okay, since spring practice, and even going back to last season. If you can remember last season, you can remember Justin White coming off the edge and affecting the quarterback in a big game. So it's not like, you know, we haven't been in this situation before. You know, that's part of it. We had instances of that a year ago, year before, you know, and it will always be like that, you know, and that's why we have to prepare every single guy to be ready to play as best we can with the limited amount of reps that we're able to give guys in practice, you know. So a lot of it is mental reps and, you know, and experience and things like that, you know, gaining confidence and having the discipline to do your job on a consistent basis. You know, that's what it comes down to. So that's football. That's football.
Mel, I know you got a lot that you're focused on right now, and you know, I know coaching probably takes some of those feelings away. But just being a Wisconsin graduate and coaching against them for the first time, do you think seeing them out on the field, that helmet, those uniforms, will that bring any sentimentality out for you? And do you have any stories or memories, particularly of coming to this building to play as a player?
No, it doesn't. at this point, that doesn't really factor into what I'm doing day to day or whatever. So it's just a different mindset for me, you know, as a coach. You know, when you're preparing a team and things like that, you know, it's standard over feelings, like what needs to be done. It's not about emotion or any of that, you know, reminiscing or anything like that. There's a time and a place for that, but not right now. It doesn't factor in.
Right here, Mel. I'm just wondering about the kicking game in particular and special teams. I know obviously Hank was out as the long snapper, but you've gone back and forth on kickers a little bit, still not seeing the success you want. Is this something where you just kind of keep trying guys in game? I mean, obviously you're evaluating them during the week too, but how are you approaching this with the kickers?
Yeah, you know, Donovan did a really nice job stepping in, you know, last minute and being pressed into duty. He wasn't expecting to start that game. Was our long snapper. He did a nice job in there. Yeah, so you know, we've identified some things, you know, behind the scenes in our operation that you know, that we think are going to help our situation. So we're working on those things right now.
Just to follow up, clarify on the young man that went down to Langham. I know he's back. Does he have a football future, Langham? Yeah, whoever went down. Does he have a football future?
Does he have a football
future?
future?
Is there anything long term? Is he going to be able to play football?
You know, he's progressing nicely. You know, I don't have any information about, you know, anything that will be career ending.
So you don't know yet?
Pardon me?
You don't know yet?
I don't have a reason to think that is the case. You talking about Jaden?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we saw Terry Lockett's no longer with the team, and I was wondering if you had anything you could say about that. And then also, with being the transfer portal windows, where you have guys that maybe they're not happy with their role, or, you know, for whatever reason they're looking elsewhere, how you handle that in season now, given that they can't really enter the portal and be eligible at their next school immediately?
Yeah, I mean, so if a kid enters the portal, or if he doesn't, if he's not with us, then he's not with us, and we'll do everything we can to help him land somewhere else. That's how we've handled it, whether it's in season, out of season. That's not something that's new. It's been like that, you know, year one, year two as well. All right, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Appreciate you covering our team. Thank you.
All right, so during that press conference, Mel Tucker was asked about fans leaving the stadium early against Ohio State, and here's what he had to say. I don't have the expectation of unconditional support from anyone in my life. He was even talking about his dogs, KJ and PJ, and the look they will give him when he comes home after a loss, kind of joking around. He said, we need to play better football, and we'll get more of what we want from our fans. So some honesty there from Mel Tucker, knowing that they need to play better after falling to Ohio State 49-20. Purdue Boilermakers, they're certainly having fun on the road. They now have 2 straight road wins. They're 2-0 in the Big Ten, and that's the 2nd straight season that they've had this success like they've had on the road. But they are home this weekend, as you heard, against Nebraska. And so just taking a look at their upcoming schedule, I mentioned that this is a primetime game, so night game under the lights at Purdue. They got Nebraska, and then after that, Wisconsin, and then comes their bye week. So especially when they've been on the road, just want to point out they've won 5 of their last 6 road games against unranked teams. So now being back home, getting to sleep in their own beds, we'll see how things go against Nebraska, but let's hear about it from head coach Jeff Brohm.
Looking forward to getting back home in front of our fans. They've been tremendous all year, so it'll be great to get back and have a home game. Always a lot to learn from the last game, so we're going to have to do that as we proceed forward. And without question, we need to have a good week of practice. We've got a talented football team coming off 2 wins that's always had a lot of talent. They got great size. They look the part. They got really good players. I think they've simplified some things in their plan, and they're playing good football. So we're going to have to practice well, be really hungry this week to improve, and come ready to play.
A couple things from Saturday's game. Just the how significant was Cam Allen's block of the PAT, and how did that affect strategy on your end at the end of the game, and how do you feel like it potentially impacted what Maryland wanted to do at the end of the game as well?
Well, it was huge. Anytime you can block an extra point, it's huge. As we looked at the video and had the big screen on it, he was not offsides from our vantage point. Did he move a little bit before the others? Yes, but he was not offsides when the ball snapped. And on the two-point play, their lineman was 6 yards down the field. So two good calls, in our opinion, that luckily were called. But block extra point's huge when you block a kick, especially when the game's tight. Gave us the ability to come down and score, take the lead, put us in an advantageous position, and then of course being able to score again, gave us what we thought was a little leeway. They came back and scored, so unfortunately, it didn't work out exactly the way we wanted. But yeah, really good job by Cam. And anytime you can block an extra point and do anything that gives you an advantage, it helps.
They threw a flag on that, not for the offsides, but they threw a flag for something else. What was the flag for?
On
the extra point that was blocked.
Oh, that was for when we recovered the onside kick. I guess we tossed the ball illegally forward. So that was illegal, that part.
Daniel Johnson didn't play Saturday. What's his status, long-term, short-term?
He'll be out for the season. Unfortunately, it's just tough for a knee injury, and he'll be out for the season.
And as you look at the offensive line on film, how did they hold up? What'd you see? And is this kind of the six that you need to go moving forward now?
Well, we got to continue to develop the others. At some point, it'll probably be less than the six guys that are playing. So we've got to get the other ones ready to go just in case. We were able to rotate a little more in those positions that gave guys more responsibilities. I thought we played hard. Wasn't one of our better games, but you know what? A couple of the sacks were coverage sacks. A couple of the sacks were a tight end. A couple of the sacks were the quarterback holding it too long. Those and their defensive line, especially the 1-3 technique, was even a little better than we thought. And it was pretty stout and got off blocks when we thought we might have a hole running. They got off the blocks at the last minute. So I give them credit. They did a good job. And, we just got to work through it. But I thought our, offensive line, played hard, and we just got to, correct any of the mistakes we had.
Do you look at, you're always trying to develop guys, but are there some of the younger guys that are closer that could help you in the second half of the year?
Well, those guys are getting closer. They're not up to the capabilities of our first six, but they're getting closer, and at some point they'll have to go in. But we're not going to, probably dip down into that unless we have to. And we're getting close. We've got guys nicked up quite a bit. Gus is playing through some injuries, and he's just a tough son of a gun. And some others that have been nicked up. Charlie's been nicked up, haven't been able to practice much. So I give these guys a lot of credit. We have some tough guys on the team that are not able to practice as much, which I think it has hurt us a little bit. But we have to get them to the game. But yes, those linemen are going to play before the end of the year for sure.
I think you saw the lift that Jalen Graham gave the defense, but when you went back and looked at it, just where did he really make his plays, and where did he stand out on Saturday?
Well, he's a veteran presence that I think will continue to get better. I did think the first couple of series he was rusty and he had some bust, but then he kind of settled in, and he makes tackles, he makes plays. He's an athletic guy who understands football, and I thought the more he played, the better he got, and we're hopeful he can continue to build on that. We need him to be a dominating force if he can.
Nebraska brings in a pretty good running back, Anthony Grant. What kind of style do you see from him, and what kind of challenges will it be to kind of keep him under wraps?
Well, I think they got a good combination of running back and big tight ends, some athletic receivers, and a quarterback that can move around and make plays, and that always presents some issues. So Stopping the run's always a priority. We got to do the best job we can, have the perfect balance, and make sure that we're playing the pass some as well. We can't just commit a bunch of guys in there and isolate our corners all the time. So once again, it has to be a perfect balance. We did some really good things in the game on defense at times, and there's some other times where gave up a couple of easy things, way too easy. So we can kind of just fine-tune that and make sure we're getting better. But I think our defensive line has been able to play hard and has been the backbone up front, where not necessarily has been one guy. It's just a bunch of guys playing hard, and we're able to rotate and keep them fresh. And we've got to continue to build on making plays there.
Is it any different facing an interim coach as opposed to a guy that's been there for a year or two or three? Because, as you know, you got two of them in the next 2 weeks.
Not really. It's the same football team, the talented football team. They got pride. They play hard. What you do when that happens is you just got to see the adjustments they make schematically on offense, defense, and special teams. So that's kind of what we're looking at now, is just seeing what adjustments have they made from that point on and getting prepared for that.
How deep in your playbook, or how many passing plays through the fullback do you have in your playbook?
Well, probably more than you think. The amount of passing plays hasn't been a problem. But you know what, situationally, when you get a little better running the ball, you're able to mix in some play action. We were in a two-back set, 5 to 6 times throughout the game running the football. So that definitely helps on a short yardage situation to be able to slide them in the flat. But it was, really good job by Ben, slipping in the flat. Good job by Devin, blocking on the edge, and a good accurate throw that really helped key a drive to work us down the field for a touchdown. So every little thing matters.
Would you like to utilize the running backs more in the passing game?
Well, we threw to him quite a bit on some swings and some things like that. I think we had one drop on a play action. But, yeah, for sure we do. I know Austin's very comfortable throwing to those guys. Aiden's always looking up the field to throw first. But, this team had a couple good corners, especially one that really did a really good job. At some points, they were dropping 8 or 9 guys in the coverage. You have to be able to throw those guys behind the line of scrimmage or underneath and get some yards if you're not going to hand it off to them.
Can you speak, Jeff, to the resiliency of the team? The last 2 games, 6 combined turnovers, and the defense has only given up 3 points. Just to talk about just what the defense has meant as far as being able to respond to those sudden changes and keep teams out off the scoreboard.
Well, we felt going in we had some experience on the defense side of the ball, so I thought they've done a good job. In order to win football games, you got to be good in all 3 segments. To think you're just going to score every time you touch the ball is not realistic. That's not going to happen against good opponents. So that's a pipe dream. Now we're going to work for perfection and try to be as efficient as we can. Now what we can do is be much better at not turning the ball over. When you have 3 turnovers in 2 games, you find a way to win. That shows the toughness and grit of your team. But we got to improve upon that. We've talked about it. We've identified it. It's one thing to get stopped. It's one thing to stop yourselves by turning the ball over. So that has to become a minimum of what's going on. We've gotten a little bit better on the penalties. That's helped. But our defense has played hard, and we've done a good job. And continuing to be as efficient as we can on both sides, and also gaining an edge in special teams, which we've slightly gained an edge in each and every game. We had the field goal that was really good. They missed a long field goal. We blocked an extra point. We had a little bit in return yards. So just every little thing matters in order to win. And as you can see from our games, we have 3 wins against FBS teams, and it's been by the hair of our teeth. And we've had to scratch and claw to get all those. So that's just how it's going to be. And we got to be willing to, work for perfection and better execution. But you got to have the grit and toughness to just be able to hang in there to the very end.
This looks like it's one of the best run defenses Purdue's had probably 20 years. No 100-yard rusher yet. Fewest runs of over 20 yards and 10 yards. Under 100 yards a game average. Why are you guys just so good against stopping the run?
Well, we work hard at it. We've done a good job. At the same time, I'm realistic. You know, Maryland's not a running team. Minnesota didn't have their running back. You know, we've got a lot of really good teams coming up that run the ball, so we'll see how good we are. But, you know, our D-line has played hard. We have changed some things up and been a little more multiple in our fronts and looks. You know, linebackers and safeties coming downhill and making tackles is important, and having just that perfect balance. Now, we've always tried to err on trying to stop the run, and I think we've been fairly decent at that. We've probably given up more pass yardage over the last so many years than I would like to, so you got to balance that, and really it's just about minimizing points. So, yes, first thing is stopping the run, but minimizing points and big plays is also important.
You think Aiden's back to being Aiden? You feel confident that this is the quarterback that you began the year with from a physical standpoint?
Well, I think he's feeling much better. You know, it's hard. In the last half of the season last year, he played at an elite level and was just really on fire and doing some great things. You know, teams are going to adjust and play to the things that we do well. We have to make adjustments. He's going to have to continue to try to be efficient, but yet know that, yeah, occasionally they're going to drop 8 guys in coverage. Occasionally, you know, a couple times they dropped 9. So, you know, finding the outlet, you know, stepping up and running occasionally is important. There was a couple times I thought he was a little hesitant when we had open guys, that he's got to just have the perfect balance of, yeah, we don't want interceptions, but we got to be able to take the one-on-one matchup and be aggressive when we take it. But it's going to be different every game, and you know, teams are going to know and study us, and he's just going to have to play as efficient as he can. And that's the hard part of being a quarterback, is every game's going to be different. And while we'd love to be perfect in our decisions and throws, you've got to be efficient and take what the defense gives you and move the chains, get first downs, and get points.
I don't know if you can do it in real time, Jeff, but just how you came up with the philosophy, how you're going to handle that end-of-game situation last Saturday when you're on the shadow of the goal line. I mean, you're talking to people. Is that a scenario you run over in your head weeks in the preseason? Just how do you handle something like that? Because you get it on 2 or 3 different things.
Well, every situation's always slightly different. I'm not a big analytical guy. I go by feel and what I think is going to work. I don't go by percentages. You know, at that point, with where we were at, I just knew if I was on the other sideline, I would let the team score to get the ball back. And I knew that's what they were doing. So we wanted to use some clock. We knew they had timeouts, so you had to use the timeouts first. So, you know, we ran the quarterback sneak, told our quarterback not to go in the end zone, but to not go backwards. Then we did it again on second down. You know, go forward but not backwards. Don't go in the end zone. Let's burn some more clock. Now, we didn't burn as much clock because they used their timeouts, but we were able to use their timeouts. Then on third down, you just kind of have to think, okay, you know, if we try to risk this again on fourth down, you're going to have a decision of, do you kick a field goal or do you try to go for it? And now if you get stopped, you're only up by 1. They go get a field goal, they win the game. Let's not lose the game. So on third down, it was, okay, let's try to run it in now, just in case we don't get it, and then we'll have to make the tough decision whether we'll go for it or kick the field goal. So I thought we managed it, in my opinion, about as well as we could, not being totally for sure because it was a unique situation. Unfortunately, they still went down and scored very quick, but I did think, you know, I thought we managed it pretty good.
As Maryland's going for 2, at what point do you start saying, hey, let's get our overtime play sheet ready to go? What's your thought process there? Does that kick in? Do you have a sheet of 20 plays set for overtime every week?
Well, we were getting our plays ready for the 2-point play after we scored because you know, I knew there was a chance they could score, and we had to have that 2-point play ready on defense first. So that was the first thing, you know, that we wanted to do, and unfortunately they did go down and score. I thought we had a call that worked on the first 2-point play. You know, they had a shuffle pass along with a perimeter throw. Since they didn't throw the shuffle pass, that meant their lineman was downfield. He extended the play, on the perimeter throw. Jalen was guarding his guy. We'd have everyone covered. I think Jalen must have thought he was going to run in the end zone. He abandoned his guy, left him open, and then that allowed for the open completion. Looking at it, he was going to get tackled and not scored, so Jalen should have just stayed on his guy, and then the play was over then. But I don't blame him. He felt that he needed to go make the tackle. Looking at it, he would have been tackled without going there. So luckily they were downfield. The second one was really the same call. Thought we had things guarded pretty well. He tried to buy time and scramble, and we did a good job covering. So that was the most important. As far as overtime plays, we always have a set selection ready to go, and really it's just about, your red zone plays from the 25-yard line going in, and how can you get in the end zone and get touchdowns.
We've had 2 head coaches let go in the Big Ten West. This weekend we have a coordinator let go and an offensive line coach. Where do you stand on making in-season staff coaching changes?
Well, luckily those calls aren't mine. Of course, as a coach, I know how hard it is to win and how hard it is to work your tail off to get it done. So I feel for all coaches. I think they're all working hard. And so from a coaching standpoint, you'd like for people to wait till after the season to make decisions, but that's not today's world. So you just got to keep your head down and grind and understand that, winning is important, and putting in the time to get it done is important. That's why I talk about, unfortunately, hobbies aren't as common nowadays, at least for me, because in the off season you want to make sure you study, you find answers to problems that are going to come up, you make sure you're prepared as you can. It's so competitive now in college football. It's not just about the players. The head coach has to coach. Their position coaches have to have a plan. You have to have answers. You have to put your players in the best position to succeed. You got to be able to practice hard. You got to be able to have those guys get up every week no matter what the situation is, and not get down on themselves. So that's why it's always a one-game season here, because we just want to cut it loose as hard as we can for one game, because that's all we can control. So just a lot of things that go into it, but you always hope for the best for everybody.
Yeah, I guess just Payne Durham lastly, Jeff, was that his best game of the year? Talk about how you thought he handled himself when you celebrated.
Well, he definitely is a tremendous leader for our team and wants to win, gives us great effort. We ask him to do a lot. For the tight end to play that many plays, when you got to be physical and block and catch balls, we'd like to give him more of a spell and more of a break. And not have to use him so much. And he's battled through some injuries as well. So he's played hard. And you know what? The first half, he played okay. And he had a couple busts here and there, a couple things blocking-wise. We'd like him to do better, but at the same time, we're asking him to do a lot. He's got to be able to block defensive ends and be physical and then get open and make catches. But second half, he came alive. He made really good plays. He played hard. When they're trying to take away the outside receivers, you got to work the middle of the field, and he does a good job of not having fear, and he got open underneath, and Aiden was comfortable, and he made some good catches. Some of those weren't easy catches. He'd like to throw a little more accurate ball, but he made really hard catches, and he's got sure hands, and he's just a really reliable leader for us.
Anything else for Coach? All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so Jeff Brohm there making it known that running back Dylan Downing, he's expected to be out for an extended stretch with a foot injury. And so he has 249 rushing yards on this season and 4 touchdowns, tied for the team lead in rushing touchdowns. So significant there in the run game. And he also mentioned that offensive lineman Daniel Johnson, he's out for the season. So that's some injury news for you from Jeff Brohm today at his press conference. Tom Allen and the Indiana Hoosiers, they are coming off a loss against Michigan. Of note there, Darren Hiller, offensive line coach, he was fired. So far this season, Indiana has allowed 19 sacks. That's the most in the Big Ten. Against Michigan, they allowed 7. So Rod Carey, he'll take over as offensive line coach. But let's go out to Bloomington now and hear more from Tom Allen.
All right, just want to start by saying just thoughts and prayers continue with Mike Hart, and it's good to hear that he's doing better, but continue to pray for him, and special guy that means a lot to our program. Proud of our guys' fight. Obviously didn't finish. Had some guys out, and guys stepped up. But got to continue to focus on, build off the things that we're doing well and continue to focus on the things that we got to improve to finish the way we need to finish. Really appreciate our crowd. Thought they were awesome. Really appreciate our student section. They've been great all year. Noon kickoffs doesn't faze them, and appreciate that. It's huge for our team and means a lot, so I really, really appreciate that. Just an update on some of the injuries. Cam Jones will be out for several weeks, and A.J. Barner week to week. Jalen Williams week to week. Javon Swinton is hopefully a game time decision this week. DJ Matthews as well being a game time decision this week. So hope to get some guys back. Just working really, really hard to be able to get as healthy as we possibly can each week. Proud of our scouts. Don't ever want to forget to mention those guys each week. Vincent Sneed was the defensive scout team player of the week. Very, very talented freshman that's going to be a really good player for us here. And Carter Smith and Declan McMahon, offensive scout team players of the week, just giving great effort to us and helping us get prepared every time we take the field. And then Cam Jordan, the special teams scout team player of the week. So really appreciate those guys and the effort that they've given us and consistently give us. Also want to congratulate the Hall of Fame class that's going to be inducted this weekend. And special congratulations to Don Fisher as a part of that. And so appreciate all that he represents about our program and in IU athletics has just been amazing. So opportunity this week to play a very good football team in Maryland. Coach Loxley's done a great job there. Continues to build that team, a very, very talented football team. They'll be coming here to Bloomington for a 3:30 kickoff. So they have a lot of playmakers on offense and throw the ball well, run the ball effectively. Defense plays hard, really, really good specialists, and really, really talented football team. Also, as we've put out a statement, have made a change at the offensive line position coaching, and Rod Carey will be our new offensive line coach for the remainder of the season, and you'll have a chance to talk to him here this afternoon. So I appreciate you guys being here. Ready for questions.
Tom, sorry, covering a lot of ground in a short time. Number one, kind of what is Coach Carey's sort of official title, like for now anyway? And number two, what was the evaluation process that you went through that led you to determine, A, that a change needed to be made, and B, that Coach Carey was kind of the right person to step into that void?
Yeah, just, as we said, weekly evaluation, just, there's a standard that we play with and want to play with, and I didn't think we were playing to that standard on the offensive line, and wanted to see improvement, and did not see it to the degree that we needed, and so I felt like a change was necessary. So just going through and, having Rod here with us, that wasn't the plan when he came here, was for this to happen, to be honest with you, and he knows that, and we talked about that. But to have a guy of his experience as an FBS head coach for 10 years, and he's really an offensive line guy. That's what the position he played here, and that's where his eyes go. That's what he does. He's been offensive coordinator, obviously, as I mentioned, head coach. So just, the chance to have someone that was right here with us on a consistent basis in our staff meetings, around our players, to be able to utilize that was a very positive thing without question. And he loves Indiana, and believes in what we're doing, and so excited to have him in that role. And he'll be the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator.
I wanted to go back a little bit to the question I asked on Saturday about Darren. I guess when you had some of the one-on-one conversations with him in the offseason, were there things I guess you asked for in those conversations as far as process were concerned, as far as how you wanted him to coach the team or how you wanted the offensive line to operate, that he either didn't do or failed to meet, or was it just an issue of results, or was there anything in the process that you didn't like and you want to see change?
I think we've stated that we made a change, and obviously you have to performance-based assessment for your position groups, and that's what we tell our coaches, and it's accountability for the way they perform. And to me, it wasn't meeting the standard that we have to be able to be successful on game day in this conference. So when that doesn't happen and you don't get the results you want, then you make a change, and that's what we've done.
Hey, Coach, this season you've talked about playing a lot more guys on defense to try to create that added depth. Now that you're in a position without Cam and Jalen, how do you feel about that depth? And are there any guys that you think over the last couple of weeks have stepped up that you feel like are ready to now contribute bigger roles?
Well, it definitely was the focus, and we've stated that, and I'm glad we did. I thought that Bradley Jennings played extremely well. Made some mistakes, but I thought he played extremely well. He took his game to another level. I think even Aaron Casey, a year ago at this time, he wasn't playing much. And then when he did get a chance to play late in the year, didn't play very well. And so just the ability to fix that. Matt Holt, same thing, got a lot of valuable reps. I mean, he had some really big stops for us on Saturday. I think that was huge. Chris Keys, there was a chance for him to step up. He played extremely well for us, which is huge. Philip Dunn is another true freshman that, by design, have intentionally getting him more involved. And same with Josh Sanguinetti. Those guys playing lots of reps. And even Brylo Lanier at corner, just intentionally playing those guys in the first several weeks of the season to make sure they're ready. And obviously, you don't know who's going to get injured, and you don't want anybody to get injured. But when it happens, you got to have that depth ready. And so I think it definitely showed up on Saturday, and those guys, it has to continue. Some guys were trying to get back. Some guys will be back in a few more weeks. But at the same time, that's, you recruit guys. Even Caden Turner, we brought him up this past week with the ones and the twos and got him some reps there. He's obviously a true freshman that just needs to be ready when called upon. So I think about that linebacker room because that's been hit by the loss of Cam, and then the cornerback room with Jalen's injury. And so those guys having a chance to get valuable reps the last several weeks, and that's got to continue, I mean, defensive line, the same thing, guys that rotate in there and just trying to continue to play a lot of guys and continue to be, I think even Monster, we had the conversation, he's able to not have to play as many snaps, and it helps him be able to finish stronger and play better throughout the course of the game.
Coach, what did you like that your team did against Michigan and in the first half of the season that you really have to expand on if you're going to have a more successful second half than you did in the first? Yeah, I mean, I think that bottom line is that, even today we go through and you show, clips from the game and you see the defense flying around, getting some big stops, getting a huge takeaway in the red zone, score zone area. I feel like that the execution has continued to improve, but it's not where it needs to be. And I just think, you kind of go through and say you play a team like, Michigan, and you have, one 50-yard run that was early in the game, and you have four guys around him, and we don't get him on the ground, and it should have been a minimal gain, but he's a great running back. Give him credit for his ability. But to finish those situations, and then you go the rest of the game and really played really good run defense the rest of the way, and so it's that consistency that we got to have. And I know we're trying to play a lot of guys. That's a challenge to be able to get all those guys on the same page, but when you see when the guys do it, and we showed a whole bunch of clips this morning with our guys that say, when we do these things the correct way, this is the result. And when we don't communicate or we don't execute, then we give up big plays because you're playing against teams and athletes that can make you pay in a hurry. So I just think you build off of the effort, which has been consistent. You build off of defensively, the tackling, offensively when we're in rhythm and our guys are moving the football. And we got in the score zone, obviously scored 2 touchdowns. One of them got called back controversially, and then you got a chance to get down there and score another field goal. And so you get a chance to get 17 points in the first half, and you feel a lot different, about how those drives finish, And so you see the guys, and it's played out. We played a really good Illinois defense week 1. They're number 1 in the nation right now in scoring defense. And so and did some really good things against them, especially there when we needed to. So you build off of what you have to what you've seen on film, you've seen your guys do. You fight through the injuries, you fight through the issues that you have with all that, and keep developing your players. And, it's a long season. We're at the halfway point. We're not where we want to be right now in the way that we finished the last 2 games. But at the same time, you have to continue to build off the positives from the first half of the season, and you take those into the second half, because obviously the second half of the season is going to define how everything is determined. So a lot to build off of. I'm one that chooses to focus on the things that we've done well, build the confidence in that, and then correct the mistakes. And obviously that's going to be in multiple layers, a lot of things to all that, but that's the objective right now. Tom, over here, with Cam Jones, obviously he can't play, but the leadership he's showing, especially on the sidelines, he seems very animated there. Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah, well, he and I met, when we found out he's going to be out for a little bit. That was really what our talk was about. First of all, we were making sure he was okay. I know how hard he's worked and how devastated he was. But then the next conversation was, okay, Cam,
you're now in a different role. Right? As you're rehabbing, you're getting yourself healthy, you got to lead this team, and you got to do it from the sideline. I know that's harder to do than it is when you're playing, but you've earned the right to continue to speak. And so basically in practice, same thing. He still brings the guys up after we break them down. He gives them a charge before practice. A couple other guys have stepped up. Noah Pierre, I would say, would be one, and Bryant Fitzgerald would be two guys that verbally have stepped up during the week to do kind of fill that void on the field for Cam. But he understands that, he's the captain of this football team, and he is our leader. And so that leadership does not stop just because he's not able to play right now. So I was really not surprised, but encouraged by his leadership that he showed on the sideline. And just when they come off the field, help him adjust. Matter of fact, he's taking notes during meetings. He knows the game plan. He's making sure that the guys are making the checks and adjustments. And it's because he cares. And he's a special, special player. He's a special person. And so I'm proud of him for that. It's easy. I've seen a lot of guys handle these injuries different ways. A lot of great players that can get a little bit, disconnected because they're not out there. That's not been the case with him. Like I said, he knows the game plan. He's involved. He's engaged. We took him to the hotel with us. That counts as a player. You can't just, you can only take so many guys, for even a home game because it's a conference game. And so we feel like he's that valuable to us. You take him in those numbers. Why? Because he affects the outcome of the game, even though he can't physically play, and since he's the captain. So been really, really proud of that. It was obviously his first opportunity this past weekend, and I expect that to continue.
Going back to the coaching change, how did you break this news to your players, and how have you seen them kind of process it over the last 24 or 36 hours or whatever it's been? And I guess as the dust settles on this in the short term, what are you looking for from those guys this week?
I told the offensive line in person on Sunday afternoon, early afternoon, and wanted to tell them face-to-face. There was a lot of emotions, and they love Coach Hiller. I love Coach Hiller. So, it's just relationships with people, it matters. People matter, it's families. I know everybody just throws stuff around and says things, and I get that, and I understand that's part of what we do, but there's people below all this. And so our players were emotional, and there's connections, and they took it personal in a good way. You know what? They know it's about accountability and those guys stepping up, and I'm challenging them to be able to rise up as a group and to be able to play for each other. And to me, it's accountability of the whole offense. It's the whole team that embraces who we are and what we're all about, and the staffs that we have and the people we have as part of the staff. So, and then you go through and told the whole team today. I know they already, everything gets put out there, publicly, but talked about it as a whole group today, this morning in our team meeting. And but it's, something that the decision's been made, and Coach Carey's now in that role, and we're going to move forward. And the expectation is for those guys that play the standard that we know we got to play at to win Big Ten football games. So that's the objective, that's the expectation, and I'm excited for Coach Carey to be able to be in this role.
Coach, we spoke to Connor before you, and he said that the offense is really right there on the cusp of breaking out. He said that they're due. What are you seeing from the offense that's just preventing them from getting over that hump, and what do they need to do to essentially?
Yeah, and I don't disagree, and I see the evidence as well, but I also see that we gotta be able to play at a higher level in the second half, and be able to finish those drives. And to me, it's our kids practiced hard last week. They responded to the changes that we made with our structure, and we'll have some modifications this week as well. But to me, it's about core confidence in what we're doing. It is still execution is paramount. You can't get away from that. You can't be jumping off sides. You can't make mistakes. You get those drive killers against a team of the caliber of Michigan, and you play in a road game a week ago, and you can't make those mistakes on the road, and with all that adversity that creates. And so, to me, it's about consistent execution. I'll keep saying it because it doesn't change. You can't go through and be effective on either side of the ball without doing the little things correctly. And so it's the whole group. It's everybody doing their job. And pass protection is not just the offensive line. It's a big part of it. There's no doubt. Big men lead the way in that area, but there are other things involved as well. And so it's our staff, it's our players, it's our quarterback, it's our receivers, it's our running backs. It's a part of all that, and everybody taking ownership of that as a group. And to me, they've shown what they can be, and they've shown what they can do, and the ability for us to get the ball in the end zone and move the ball down the field and get first downs and stay on the field as an offense, and then we see what happens when we don't, but that you just
you know what you need to do, and you make the adjustments you need to make, but at the end of the day, you got to stay the course, and you got to continue to fight and demand the little things that where when it matters the most, we're going to be at our best, like we were early in the season at the finishes of those two critical drives that we had to have. So that to me is what the expectation is and what we got to get to, and then I know our coaches feel that, and we're not going to be dissuaded by anything other than this is the goal, this is the objective, and we got to stay together, fight together, and get this thing fixed.
Tom, Maryland obviously has lost their last two ball games, but they are an improved football team based on everything we're seeing over those past year. Where do you see the biggest improvement in them, and what's your take on why they are such a good football team?
Yeah, I would say, we've obviously played them every year I've been here. I think every single time we've played them, it's come down to the final possession, whether it's here or there. Always have had a lot of athletes, always have had a lot of speed. One of the most athletic teams we play every year. That's never changed. It's still the case this year. I think the thing that sticks out to me is quarterback play, and I think that he's continued to get better and better. And he's a special quarterback. He played well last year in our game. He's played well this year. And that, to me, is the key, and that's a big part of it. They've had, and like you said, the athleticism in the backfield and the receiver has always been elite. Every time we played them, always been guys who were very, very conscious of and concerned about where they were on the field and how they were trying to get them the ball. Defensively, they've always played hard. They've always been big and athletic and can run, And so, but that, to me, if I had to pick one thing, would be that, is the play of their quarterback. And that's allowed them, I think, to be able to elevate their team and win some of those close games. I know they had a close one here this past weekend. So, but you play in this conference, that's what's going to happen. Games are going to come down to the final possession, and that's how games are decided. So, Coach Loxley, as I've said before, has done a really good job there and has recruited. There's a lot of talent in that area where they're located, and they know that, and they've tried hard to keep those guys home there, and it's made an impact.
All right, so Tom Allen, especially after the last couple of games, a lot to build off of in those second halves, and they're going to have to do it without some notable players. Announced some injuries. That linebacker Cam Jones, he'll be out for several weeks. Williams and Barner, so defensive back and tight end, they're week to week, and receivers Swinton and Matthews will be game time decisions on Saturday against Maryland. Now, Bret Bielema, like I said, he will be talking, probably most notably interested in hearing about the status of quarterback Tommy DeVito and receiver Isaiah Williams. Let's hear from Bielema.
Well, I'm the first guy that turns the page and moves on, but I just did want to say back, on reflection of Saturday's atmosphere, thank you to, everything in the Department of Athletics, is also the university, but I might be the only head coach in the country that says this type of thing, but our director of band, Barry Hauser, gets it. Like I've never been around a guy. I had him actually speak to the team a year ago. It's when I first had a chance to be around him, and what he pours into game day. I actually, it came out of halftime, and as a choice, as a head coach, we were kicking off. We had a choice which direction. The wind was kind of a push. It was kind of the equal distance both ways, kind of swirling in both end zones. And I literally thought to myself, where can we go? Because I thought it would be a final possession game. I told our coaches all week, told our players, nothing that happened on Saturday was a shock to them. We kind of talked about the way that I thought this game would go. Of course, I was going to welcome the other way in a positive direction if it happened, but I chose to kick towards State Farm so that we knew that at the end of the game, if we were in a situation where we had to score, we would be down in our student section, and if, on the flip side of it, if it was a backed up scenario, they would be in our student section. That literally affected our game because of our student section and our band. So Barry obviously has direct control of the band. He was just awesome. He gets it. He understands it. And then our student section, we had a couple Block High students come out last week, and the way that they arrived and the way that they stayed was just truly an indication of what this place could be. We weren't quite there, obviously. Whatever the number was, it was as loud as it's been since I've been here, and so whatever we can do to get it to a place to be even higher this weekend for homecoming would be awesome. But as a head coach since coming here, I just recognize and understand people that get it, right? And that jumped out to me huge. Yesterday during our team meeting, we recognized as normal our MVPs and the way that they played, but I made a specific point to point out 6 guys that when they woke up on Saturday morning, they didn't know their role was going to be a starter, but it changed during the course of the game, right? So the first one was Fabrizio, who also just got named, obviously, Big Ten Player of the Week. He had expected to possibly be a long field goal hitter on Saturday, but wasn't expected to take over the entire field goal duty, so he did that, passed that with flying colors. And that's not just him, right? Then he's the holder with Hugh Roberson. It's a snapper of Lane Hansen. The protection was absolutely rock solid the whole day, so a great moment for them. Obviously, the offensive emphasis is always through the quarterback, so to see Art respond the way that he did was just absolutely awesome. But then a guy that kind of got lost in the mix, two guys really, when Isaiah went down, that forced Miles and Hank Beatty into that role at the slot position, and they handled it, not as all Big Ten performance yet, but they did what they had to do. They were very specific. I give Hank a lot of credit. This guy never caught punts at Rochester, right? So, I remember being in fall camp, and I was watching him, catch the ball, and so we were starting our special teams period, and I said, hey, Hank, go back there and catch punts. I just kind of said, why weren't you back there? And he goes, I never caught punts. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, at Rochester, and I think the world of his head coach, and he's won a lot of titles, but he obviously didn't have him back there as a punt returner, and he went back there and caught that thing right with the guys. There's supposed to be a 1-yard rule, but his feet were standing on a 10-yard line, and the defender's feet were standing on a 10-yard line. He caught that ball in tight traffic at the end of the game. It was absolutely awesome. Defensively, obviously Taz Nicholson goes down, and to have Rello go in there and do what he did, the plays that he made was just awesome to see that and witness that. Dark Angelo went down, which not only affected us at linebacker play, but about our dark starts on all 4 units of the kicking game. So all the guys that stepped into his role, just truly, we talk all season, all year about, hey, when your moment comes, be ready for it. And those guys really did a great job. So I couldn't say enough things about those guys. A guy like Jonah Moore, I thought the transfer portal showed up on Saturday. Rello, obviously we got a week before fall camp. Actually, Rello and Jonah Miller both entered the University of Illinois right before fall camp started up. So they got 4 weeks of fall camp with us, and then they're in the game week. And the way those guys played in that game was truly, truly awesome to be a part of. So we'll turn the page and jump into Minnesota. Obviously, this is the 4th rematch game for us this year, but this is the first game. It's a rematch against a team that we, as Bob pointed out, right, that's the first time that we'll play a team that we beat a year ago. Very fortunate to get out of there with a win last year. I think overall they're actually a better football team probably. I know they lost some good players, especially on the offensive line, and lost some other players, O-line on the defense and the special teams, but they're a very complete football team. It'll be a 4-1 team. They had bye week last week, so it's a tremendous challenge for us to play a 4-quarter game and then turn around and play 11 a.m. kickoff, which I'm excited for because I think our appetite for a home game here in Memorial should be really, really high. I know it's 11 o'clock, so either come in the night before and enjoy champagne and start your tailgate whenever you want, or get up early and drive down, and let's make Memorial as great as it can be. With that, open up for questions.
Any update on Tommy?
Yeah, really all the guys that are injured. I don't think any of them will be, a season ending or anything along that lines. I think we are fortunate this week, obviously with Minnesota, to have the bye week coming out of it, that the majority of those guys should all be back in time for our return after the bye week, but I don't know how realistic it is for any of those 4 or 5 guys to project into being in this week's plan.
Does that, with the bye week coming immediately after, does that change or influence any approach in terms of maybe not rushing someone?
Yeah.
Or you have an extra week?
Yeah, a guy, case in point, when Josh McCray got hurt, right, we looked at the schedule, looked at what the doctor said, and saw that, hey, he could return right before with possibly this game, or worst case scenario be after the bye week on his return. And Josh is really day by day. He performed Sunday with the trainers. Obviously, we don't practice on Sundays overall, but Josh had a really good day on Sunday. Kind of waiting to see where he's at today when he comes back in. And then tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and his projection for Saturday will be a lot about how his body reacts during the course of the week. So, the bye week, we knew this was going to happen, right? We knew we had 3 games a bye week, 4 games a bye week, and then 5-game stretch. So we've been talking about this and thinking about this for a long time.
Right. Obviously, the kicking situation is influencing when you want to go for it on 4th down. But are there other factors that are lending towards, I guess, more aggressiveness there?
Yes and no. I think as a head coach, when I tried to say this to you guys last year, sometimes you guys write your articles before you ask questions. But I would say a year ago there was certain times where I was greatly affected by ability to be successful on fourth down, right? Like either with a call or the person or the trigger. And now, I think I made this reference last week at Wisconsin when I went for it on 4th and 4. I was literally asking the question and Barry was spitting the answer, right? And I think we were 3 for 3. I know third down was not great, but fourth down we were 3 for 3. You can't get better than 100%. So obviously we didn't at the end when I told him to, but we were 100% there on Saturday and very good the week before. So that's a huge influence on your ability as a head coach, is to have confidence in your offensive coordinator, but also your offensive play call.
You used to being ranked, when you're at Wisconsin, you were ranked all the time. That hasn't happened here in 11 years. When you saw that yesterday, how did it make you feel?
It's a great question. I think I draw all the time from my experiences, and I distinctly remember during my third year at Wisconsin when we fell to the first time we hadn't been ranked, I believe, and I distinctly remember feeling that, right? And it was the first time that we weren't ranked since I'd been a head coach, right? And that was a moment I remember. And then I would go to the flip side, right? So I really don't worry about a lot of things I don't have on my radar all that much, but I always get a lot smarter on Saturday night after a game. I had obviously a tremendous group of family and friends in for the game. Got done with the game and did a lot of media, and we had a lot of recruiting in, and my wife loves to get back, and she loves to watch the final drive on the Big Ten Network, right? And we're sitting there, and they're going through the final segment, right, the final drive, whatever that is, and Dave Revson says to the group, Illinois is the last Power 5 team that hasn't been ranked since 2011. And I'm like, I stopped and I said, what did he say? And she said, we haven't been ranked since 2011. He's asking if we're going to get ranked. And I had no idea, none. Yesterday, I didn't even really think about it much after that. I thought we'd probably be another week if we were able to have success this week. We might get ranked. But when that came through yesterday, I was literally just sat there for a moment, kind of digested it and thought about it. I thought it was a good thing. I grew up and played for Coach Fry, and Coach Fry always used to say, partner, if you've done it, you ain't bragging. And that's why I showed it. It was one of the first graphics I showed our players, right? Because I know other people are going to talk about it, right? So it's a product of what they've built and what they've tried to accomplish, but it's definitely not our ending point. It's hopefully just a catalyst in our future.
Tell your team about that, Bret. Those expectations, and you get more attention. How do you tell your team about how to handle
Yeah, well, they've been hearing it for about 4 weeks, right? I knew this was coming, right? Like you may not, and they may not. Sometimes reality is the best, is the best educator. But for me as a head coach, since last January to where we were in the spring to where we're in the summer, I think you've heard me say it. Like I knew these things were coming. They had to come to the reality of the moment for some of our guys. I think probably half of our team thought this day was going to come, but to see Palcho after the game in tears, right? Like that's a cool thing. So I knew it was coming. I think other people around us knew it was coming, but now we're in the real world, right? So I gave him the quote. Muhammad Ali had one, right? The more real you get, the more unreal it gets. So it's also a John Lennon song, who really wants to research it. But I think the thing that is really fun for our guys to take place in is they're just thirsty, right? They're hungry. They're excited. These little things are going to find, continue to pop up along the way. This is going to be a big game on Saturday because we've made it a big game. Minnesota did their part, right? They're a 4-1 football team, and we're a 5-1 team, and it's going to get a little bit of a buzz. So that's a product of, I think, of a lot of good work on both schools.
A big group of visitors visiting recruits on Saturday for game day. What kind of feedback did you get from
this past weekend?
Yes.
Yeah, I give Pat Hamilton, I can't say enough about the value of Pat since I've got here in our personnel department. I've brought in a lot of other. Pat Pearson is an incredible asset to our program. Nate McNeil. We've hired some other people. Pat Ryan. So I really, on Saturday game days, even when we were a team in the past, when I've been at other places, highly ranked to the reality of where we're at now, just getting ranked for the first time. Saturdays are for the team that's here, right? So I will occasionally meet with a player if there's going to be an offer involved, if it's someone that we're highly sought after and we don't get them on campus very often. But my meetings are usually, prior to us arriving at the stadium. So we had a long day, so I could meet people earlier in the day. We had some official visitors. I met and had coffee with a set of grandparents in the morning. on Sunday I met with a lot of visitors because they stayed the night after a night game. But game day visits are usually for my assistants and our recruiting staff. And Pat made reference after the game that it was probably the best group of unofficial visitors / official visitors since he's been here. The environment, the way the crowd was interactive with our fans. I specifically saw a couple of pictures of people that were here visiting us that were waving their orange towel fanatically in the fourth quarter. So I think they enjoyed it as much as we did.
Excite you about this week, about Barry and Art being able to put a plan together and having the whole week to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think, the thing about Art, Barry hasn't experienced Art as a starter, right? I have. So there's these little uncommon, like they didn't know Mike Marquez, right? And I kept saying, wait till we get Marquez back in there, right? Like, wait till you see what he's all about. Art is a guy that accepts the challenge. He's going to be the projected starter. He's going to be the projected backup. His preparation is all the same, and it's very it's not normal, right? So Art is a guy that's got my respect from day one a year ago to where we are today, and I think the team as well. I said that to the team. I go, is there anybody in here that's surprised by the way Art handled the moment, right? And it wasn't clean by any means. I think he'd be the first to tell you that, and Barry would as well. So those two working together, I think, was a great learning experience along the way. Wherever that goes or however that transcends, I'm glad we were able to have those moments out of a 9-6 win and vice versa.
Saturday when after Sikowski came in, he's scrambling and he kind of put his shoulder into a linebacker.
Yeah.
I saw, I guess, a two-part question. A, do you go to your quarterback there and say, hey, we're down to number 2 and I don't want to go to number 3? And B, sideline got pretty fired up. That was a moment for the team of, hey, this guy has got it, and go. Tell me about that moment and what your reaction.
Robert, good point. So I think first off, I don't ever want to coach a player into something that he's not, right? And I think that's Art's demeanor. I think if he felt that it was going to give us an advantage either by down a distance and a first down or give us something to sideline, he was probably going to do that again. I would much rather try to take that out of him and try to put it in him, right? On the flip side of it, it was a definite emotional reaction out of our players. So I think that's Art being engaged with our sideline more than anything. I think there is a point in time where you would have a conversation, and we actually worked with Art last year about sliding because it's not in his DNA to do that, right? But that's definitely a learning moment for everybody involved. But it was for what we needed at the time. It's probably what the doctor ordered.
Somebody's coaching position at the NFL. What has Seth Coleman shown you the last couple of weeks from that position? Why are you having success?
Seth has got 3 key factors as an edge player. He's got an extreme length, right? Like he's tall, but he's not like not like too tall, right? Like he's tall, but he's extremely long in his levers. I think Kevin does a tremendous job. Kevin, the 2 guys that he worked with a year ago, Seth is kind of a combo platter between Gabe and our 2 starters last year, Owen and OC, but and Gabe, Isaiah Gay. So those 2 guys were kind of 2 distinct players, right? And Seth's kind of he's not one of those. He's kind of a combo platter of both. So it's been fun to watch Seth grow. And then the other thing that's really happened, I think, with Seth from a year ago, his football IQ awareness on the edge. If there are 2 players that defensively you really hope they have great football IQ awareness, it's your edge players, right? It's your safeties and your edge players because usually they're in charge of a lot. And Seth recognizes, I think, when he's got speed on a tackle, but he also recognizes when he has power. And in the run game, he's been really good on the edge. So those things really make him play well. And he's a tremendous influence on Gabe Akis. And then Alec Bryant's another guy that's kind of played more and more. It's been fun to see Alec get in there and mix it up a little bit more. So those 3 guys, since the fall camp has started, have really continued to grow.
But just for clarity, do you expect Art to start on Saturday?
Could try.
All right, so Bret Bielema there commenting on the status of a few of his players who dealt with some injuries on Saturday, most notably quarterback Tommy DeVito. So it's unclear exactly how ready he could be for Saturday, but after this game, Illinois has a bye week, so DeVito trying to come back from his ankle injury that he suffered on Saturday. The expectation, none of the injuries to any of the players will be season ending, but DeVito's injury, it sounds like he could be back, whether it's for Minnesota or more likely it sounds like after the bye week. So still some gray area there, but most notably, no season-ending injuries. All right, so Minnesota, they're coming off the bye week. Last time out, they took on Purdue. Now, going into the Purdue game, they had never trailed this season in a game. But then, against Purdue, they never led. So they're looking to bounce back against Illinois, who you can see, and we just heard from Bret Bielema, Illinois now ranked number 24. So it is a big weekend in the West. It is still very much up in the air. And so let's hear from head coach P.J. Fleck.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Great to see everyone. Just want to send all of our thoughts and prayers out to the Michigan family. Talked to Coach Harbaugh this morning. Send all of our prayers and thoughts to Mike Hart and his entire family and the Wolverine family and everybody who witnessed and experienced that. That can be really, really difficult. You know, Mike Hart worked for us, and he's a wonderful human being, wonderful coach, wonderful person, and as Coach Harbaugh said, puts things in perspective real quick. So just want to make sure he knows. I talked to Coach Harbaugh this morning, and just to let everybody know that we're, as Gophers, our Gopher family's thinking about theirs. So we'll start with that and open up for questions.
PJ, what would you say kind of the characteristics of a Bret Bielema coach team?
Well, they do what they do extremely well, incredibly physical. They're all on the same page. You know, they want to put the ball down and run the football, play action pass, naked. You know, they want to just beat you up. And they've done that to a lot of people this year. They're a really good football team. They got a ton of experience on that team. A lot of guys who played a ton of football, really good athletes. They do what they do very well. He's done a really good job of coming in and instilling his mentality into that program. I think it shows. Got a lot of respect for him. You know, obviously he's one of the best college coaches maybe of all time. And you can start to see that blueprint starting to take shape over there at Illinois. And got a lot of respect for what they do and who they are, especially him as a person and as a coach.
Looking at it on the bye week through the self-scout?
Well, when you kind of look at the game, you know, we drop a check down to start the game, right? We don't get the fourth down, which is on me. We get a tip ball interception. We drop a ball in the end zone for a touchdown, and then that gets picked off. We get a personal foul late. We drop some interceptions. We didn't tackle necessarily particularly well on the last few drives. I can go on and on. But when it was everybody, which then falls on me. Because we didn't execute. You saw the first few games, we executed. We showed what we can do on offense, defense, special teams, and again, it doesn't matter the opponent. You know, we've got to handle what we can handle. So going back into the week, we went back to not just the fundamentals and techniques. We did a lot of that, but it was more about executing, right? Showing us why we got in the positions we were in last week. And, you know, one thing I always want our football team to know is why. You know, you can coach till your face is blue. If you're not showing why all the time, then it's going one ear and out the other. I mean, from our team meeting even last night, here's why we talk about this, and then we show them different plays from around the country, and we'll continue to do that. But, you know, this team's got incredible resolve, and we showed we're not perfect. You know, I think some people think that just because you win your first 4 games, everything should be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Watch college football. Watch any game in college football. It's hard, but they came back to work right away. I mean, they respond. What I learned about them is a response is exactly what you want to see in the team that we have. I'm really proud of the response that they had.
What did you find out about the issues in the run game outside of losing Mo, which is he's such a difference maker? What did you feel like in the running game against Purdue?
Well, I think it was collective. No pun intended there. But I think it was collective when you look at it. You know, Mo was a game-time decision. You saw him warming up. And, you know, our doctors, you know, and him and our trainers got together and just said, we just don't feel good about it this week. And we'll never put Mo in harm's way, ever. And none of our players. So we made the decision, you know, not to play him. And the other guys, what I saw was it was one or the other. Either we missed a hole at the running back position, made a cut too early, maybe didn't trust it enough, or we got beat up front. It was one or the other. And anything that could have went wrong in that game went wrong. But again, that's college football. And really good football teams, what we learned is really good football teams can still find a way to overcome those things. And in past years, maybe we've been able to overcome those. In some years, we haven't been able to. This football team got a chance to see that, you know, you're human. You're going to keep fighting human nature. But that's the hard part about college football is you've got to find a way to overcome that human nature piece of that. But it was one or the other. And it just seemed like it never went together, Andy. And we had one of those days. And, you know, one thing I say, it's not an excuse. It's one of those days. Who cares? It's one of those days. That's not what I mean. But it seemed as you watched the film, every single thing that maybe could have went wrong did go wrong, and it was one guy out of the 10 or the 11, and it was every play. So we weren't consistent enough as a team, collectively, offense, defense, or special teams. You know, we missed a field goal. It felt like we were constantly chasing. Then when we caught up, there was something else that we made a mistake that, you know, you got to give Purdue a lot of credit. They're a good, really good football team. But we've always had close games with them. You know it's going to be close, and we just, you know, weren't able to pull this one out.
Expect Mo to play this week?
I do. Yep.
What stands out while watching Illinois' defense?
Well, first of all, they're incredibly aggressive. They've got probably the best front seven. I keep saying that, but that's good. We're playing better front sevens every week. They've got 3 guys inside the way they play their odd fronts. They've got 3 guys that are all 300 pounds. They're all strong. They do a great job of violently disengaging at the point of contact, being in their gap, you know, and then getting you out of the gap so they can go make the play. Probably one of the best defensive lines I've seen at being able to dominate your gap, get rid of the offensive lineman, make the play in the hole. That's incredible skill right there. And you can tell it's coached, and they do a really good job of having really good players and then getting them to do what they want people to do. Same with the linebackers in the secondary. They're going to challenge you. They're going to get up in your face, play a man coverage. They really make cover 1 and cover 2 look exactly the same until the ball snapped, which, again, presents a lot of challenges. They do a really good job at being who they are. You know, they know this, and they don't have a lot of coverages. It's either this or this, but they all look the same until that ball snapped, which present a lot of different challenges. There's a big difference between cover 2 and cover 1. Big difference. And they've done a really good job of disguising all of that. And they're well coached. Very disciplined team, very aggressive. They all tackle well. Very impressed.
How much did the bye week help with Mo?
Oh, it helped a lot. You know, that's one of those things. It's hard. I mean, I think if we had another, 24 hours, 48 hours, he might have made it. And it's something that, you have, and then you feel good. And then overnight, then it didn't feel so good. And then we worked through it throughout the week. Did a job of limiting him during practice, but he was out there. And, then you do everything you can to get him to game day. And I thought he looked really good in warm-ups. He looked good. But unfortunately, we didn't want to, for him, we wanted to make sure we keep him safe. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to play. But he looks really good this week and, last week.
Consistency part for Dalen. What does that look like at this point?
I think you just hit it, consistency. I think consistency for our entire football team, not just one player. I thought we were pretty inconsistent last week for the first time, and I think that's why everybody kind of looked at it. It's like, huh, what happened? I went out recruiting, and we had people all over wherever I was sitting there going, hey, coach, hey, it's been a good start. What happened last week? Well, it's good when people are saying, what happened last week? So we got to keep things in perspective, too. We're not perfect. We're not going to play perfect every week, but we got to play better. And every player's got to take responsibility, as all the coaches do, too, of being more consistent in what we do and how we do it. There's always room to be better, no matter what player we're talking about. But consistency is incredibly critical as we keep moving forward throughout the season for every team that wants to win.
I think Chase Brown leads the Big Ten in yards after contact. What's going to be the key to slowing down him in that?
Yeah, swarming to the ball. Chase Brown, I think, is one of the best backs in the country, period. I think it's well documented. He has been for a long time. He does a really good job. He's got a very similar style with Muhammad, with breaking tackles, getting a lot of yards after contact. He's a very patient runner. He'll stay behind his offensive line for a while and then pop out the other side. He's incredible. He can finish, too, now. One thing that separates him from a lot of people is he can break tackles, and then when he gets in the open field, he can end it, too. And I think that's where a lot of his yards have come, too. He's been able to break some tackles, get in the open, and finish it for touchdowns. But he's got great vision. He's really one of the best backs in the country, and continues to get better.
Coach, is there any particular reason to think that Mo's injury may linger or may be more susceptible to re-injury?
Well, we wouldn't put him out there if that was the case. We would have played him last week, but the bye week was, a great opportunity for him to have a, 7 to 10 day, 7 to 12 day type injury, allow him to have 3 full weeks of recovery. So that's all you can continue to do is, football's a violent game. People are going to get hurt. You know that. But you as a coach have to do everything you can to create an atmosphere of the ability for players to get healthy. And he's played a ton of football. It's not like we need Mo on every single down of every practice. He practices. He hates to not practice. But, we need to work on getting him to game day. And, and he's done a really good job of that. And, but no, nothing would, it's football. I can't sit there and promise you that. It could be something else. It's football. But I know our doctors and our medical staff have his health at the forefront of their mind always, and they're always going to protect him the best we possibly can. And but I don't see that being something that he's still fighting through the next time he goes on the field.
From game planning and scouting, what's the biggest challenge from your perspective when you're not sure what quarterback you're going to be facing Saturday?
I think, but here's the thing, we don't know what quarterback we're going to face, right? Just like last week, we didn't know what quarterback we're going to face. But you have seen the backups in a lot of different games. When we played Purdue, we saw the backup play. If there's a drastic style of quarterback play in difference of how they play, then I think you have to scheme. If one's just a runner and the other's a passer, there could be a schematic difference that you have to be ready for both, and you have to scheme that part. If they're both pretty much pocket passers, then it just comes down to, okay, what do they do really well? But very similar to last week. I think 12 was a little bit more of a runner for Purdue, that if he was going to play, maybe we'd have a little bit more quarterback run in. But then you get down to your second quarterback, like, well, how much are they going to actually run him? Same thing with Illinois. We played against Arter before. I'm not sure if he's going to play or DeVito's going to play. One of those guys are going to play. But they have very similar styles. They're going to run their system, and I don't see it changing drastically. Are there going to be little nuances that maybe Art does a little bit differently? Sure. Do they have a week to prepare for that? Absolutely. Then just throw a backup in a game. But we'll be ready for what they do and how they do it, and then adjust during the game.
You've been one of the least penalized teams in the country since you've been here. What do you think has helped the program excel in that area?
Well, I think back to even Andy's question, just consistency, and then, I think that, penalties are something you can control and then you can't control. There's a lot of plays we turn in, Daniel, okay? And some of those come back as those weren't penalties, and some of them come back as they were penalties. And I get all that, but nobody's perfect, right? But what we do is, how you do one thing is how you're going to do everything. So on the field, off the field, the way that we hold our players to a really high standard academically. That's just going to be our standard here. People get to choose if that's what they want. Socially, we hold our players to a high standard here. There's have to and want to have to match. Living a life of serving and giving, that's got to be something that interests you. And then football, we hold them to a high standard of how they play. We're a developmental program. So we get guys in here and we teach them the position, and we get them fundamentally sound and teaching them techniques and then develop them all through the program. I'm not saying that's the answer, because we could have a game where we have a lot of penalties. But our players, I want them if you're going to have a penalty, I want it to be a hustle penalty. I want it to be a howl penalty. I want it to be aggressive. But it's the other ones that hurt you. It's the undisciplined ones. It's the ones that are within your control. So we do everything we can to create an atmosphere at practice and off the field where we can challenge them and organize chaos to put them in positions where you're going to feel this way during the game and you still have to perform mentally. Because it's truly, I know it's a violent game, but it's more of a mental game than just a physical game, because your mind's got to tell your body what to do. So we've got to train them more mentally and emotionally to be really tough. And I don't mean macho tough. We talked about that before, with that control and that commitment and that challenge and that confidence and that consistency. That's tough. And, but every week's its own entity. I mean, you can be a least penalized team for 10 years, and then you can get a lot of penalties coming up. That's just part of the game. A little bit in your control, some of it's outside your control, but you get to control what you can control. And that's what we do, everything we possibly can to teach that discipline within the program in every area of their life where it's not just football.
Joe Rossi's talked.
One or two more. Go ahead, Andy.
Joe Rossi's talked about not having kind of a lot of coverages, a lot of calls, just being more streamlined in the approach. How do you feel like that helps your guys' defense be successful?
Well, I think you watch Illinois. They don't have a ton of calls, and they just play incredibly fast and aggressive. I think you can do that with a team that's played a lot of football. You can also do a team that's younger. It makes sense in both areas, right? But for us, we want to make sure we play really fast, aggressive defense, because most games are lost. And most games that are won are lost less than the team lost it, right? We want to do everything we can to win football games. And last week, we did not win the football game. We did not win 78%.
All right, so most notably there, PJ Fleck talking about his running back, Mohamed Ibrahim, and saying that he is expected to return against Illinois on Saturday. It sounded like he was close to returning a couple of weeks ago against Purdue, but just it was better, he said. He wanted to keep him safe, so especially for the long term of Ibrahim, that it was important to keep him off the field. Expect him, though, Saturday. Hear from coaches and student athletes during complete coverage of Big Ten basketball media days Tuesday and Wednesday morning on Big Ten Network. It is a stacked staff there. You have Dave Revson, Mike Hall, Andy Katz, Rafael Davis, Christy Winter-Scott, Megan McEwen, Naz Hillman, and Bruce Weber as well.